Everyone, welcome back to Friday Crypto. My name is Chase. Today we're going to look at our Bitcoin Thursday update. We make updates on Bitcoin every Monday and Thursday. In this video, we're going to be focusing on trend lines and how to draw them correctly and incorrectly on multiple time frames at once, and maybe learn something that you don't know already. So let's get right to it. Where do we stand on Bitcoin? Well, you can see now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th day in a row, we're red. So are we going to flip back green sooner than later? Well, I would, you'd have to, this is better odds than Vegas, right? That we're probably going to do that. Now, 5 minutes after I finish recording this video, could we do one of these candles? Of course. Tomorrow, could we do one of these candles? Sure, right? But the trend, the short-term trend is down, but look at the daily trend on the daily chart is so far up since July 13th. So in order to maintain that, horizontal trends, horizontal levels are a little bit more important than diagonal levels like this, as you see in the red line here. And we'll get to this yellow one in a minute. You might be wondering what the hell that is. We'll get to that. It'll make more sense in just a moment. So a lot of people you'll see draw trend lines, in any way, shape, or form, and they're all subjective. So if you want to be, technically correct, this is the way to do it. You might wonder, what in the hell have I drawn the line through these for? Well, you might wonder, and I'm glad you asked. The closes of these candles are up here, not down here. So this is just the opening, right? The important ways to be drawing trend lines diagonally are the closing candles. So the closing on the reds are at the bottom. And if you need a more of a illustration on why that makes more sense, then I invite you to take your candles and put it on a line chart. And now you see exactly why drawing at the closing candles and not just through the bottom of the green candles, which usually go just below the reds, makes more sense. So a line chart like this will only update on the closes. So each day or each time frame you go through, right? If you're looking at the hour chart, each time you move you see how my mouse jumps there? Right? So each time you move it over, that's the close of that session. So that's why we draw from the closing candles to be the most technically correct. And if you're going to be correct, might as well be technically correct. So as you can see, we're at a crossroads right here, aren't we? Not only are we at this, so-called trend line, right? We've made a low, we made a higher low. We're attempting to do that again on this trend line. But that, like I said at the beginning, this line takes a little bit of a back seat to, potentially making a lower low. As long as we remain above 21,250 on this line closing chart on the daily, then we're technically could still continue this. But why would you even look at this then if that's the important level? I'm glad you asked. They can give you a little bit of a heads up on, beating some of the rest of the market on a potential reversal of this trend that we're in, right? So no matter what session you're looking at, there are primary trends and secondary trends. So on the daily chart, we're up, but on the primary chart, on the monthly, right, we're down. So it depends on which session you're looking at. So the primary trend is up, the secondary trend is down on this chart. So the secondary trend is from here to here. The primary trend is from here to here. So that's what we're looking at. And we could potentially be starting to break that if we start to close below here. Now, you might see this other line, right? We talked about that earlier. What is the yellow line for? And so that is a different time frame. So you can do that as well. You don't have to, switch time frames and then draw a new trend line, because your old trend line will be there. That's why I'm going to show you that. Remember, the daily trend line is in the red. And what is the yellow? It's the hourly trend line. So a little bit shorter time frame. It's for those that, maybe day trade a little bit, right? So again, if you don't haven't been around for more than several years and been pretty profitable, I would recommend staying away from day trading. It's a little bit more risky and requires a lot more patience, time, and learning and knowledge. So having said that, right, here's our trend line on the hourly, right? So hourly paints a different picture. Here's our touch point down here. Again, on July 13th, we had another touch point right here, and that forms your trend. You need 2 touch points to even start it, right? So you have to have 2 to form a support. 2 forms it, right? The more touch points you get, the more solid that line is. So we don't have 3 yet. On the hourly, remember this is the hourly, so it means a little bit less than the daily. The daily means a little bit less than the weekly less than the monthly, right? So following that, right, we could on the hourly, we could come all the way down here and still kind of maintain this hourly uptrend. As far as the diagonal goes, right? Now, where would we go to break the trend on the horizontal level? Well, it's that same level, right? 20,760. You want to look at the last previous low, right? So that's there. That would absolutely 100% break the trend because you just made a new low. So hopefully this helps somebody out there some way, somewhere to know something you didn't know a little bit ago. I would say about 5.5 minutes. So there's your trend line. So if you're struggling to draw trend lines, in one way or another, or you see someone else, with 10 million followers or something like that, and they're drawing their trend lines incorrectly, well, now you know. So there you go, G.I. Joe. So there you go. On the daily chart, let's go look at a couple indicators for those of you still interested. We have the RSI on the daily going down a bit, right? Let's check into that. Again, we want to maintain this upwards momentum. We have a little bit of a sketchy double top here as far as the RSI. We want to, maintain about 46 on the daily. You can see kind of a double touch point here. So this is really more sideways than anything, right? Because you can draw, and these are, these are kind of the boring times when this happens. So it's just part of a market, right? You have an uptrend or downtrend or a sideways trend. So for the RSI, it's just trending sideways, right? It's kind of bounded between these two areas. So 62 to 46, right? So we want to break out of that one way or the other to get at least a little bit of a heads up on which direction we might be going the next several weeks. So watch for that. Let's go back out and look at anything else. Our stochastic, which is the momentum. We're kind of similar things, right? Up and down. But we're losing momentum at least for the past couple days here. As you could probably tell, the prices the past 7 days have been going down. So we've been losing our momentum for a hot minute. So just keep that in mind. We want to see a reversal sooner than later, but you do see this low, lower low, and another lower low. So maybe that's the foreshadowing of a bigger momentum fall. It doesn't have anything to do with prices actually falling. This is only based on the RSI. So RSI is based on price. Stochastic is based on the RSI. So now you know. Let's see what else we got. The ADX and the I. So what would we say of this? We wouldn't even pay this the time of day. Why? Because the ADX is below 25. If your orange line is below 25, it's just like playing in the kiddie pool, right? If you only want to watch the Olympics, you need to get above, get out of the kiddie pool, get above 25. 25 is the level. So if you look on any chart and you're looking at the ADX and the I, unless the ADX is above 25, I wouldn't pay much attention to it. Now, you could look on different time frames and then you might get a different story. Now, what do we have here? Well, this is the weekly chart and is the ADX above 25? Yeah. Okay, then you pay attention and then you see who's on top. It's Mr. Bear, and he's quite a big bear, right? We're well above 25 and way separate. So this tells me that the bears are still very bigly in charge. So bearish bias based on the ADX and the I for sure. Let's see what else we got. We have our good old hash ribbons, which we don't talk about a whole lot, but it's important to check time to time. The last time we got a buy signal was August of 2021, and you guessed it, almost a year to the day was our last buy signal. So are we going to get that anytime soon, the next day or two, next week or two? Highly unlikely, right? We're not only we need to see a reversal of this bottom line, which we're still heading down, but we likely have many more weeks, at the very least, several more weeks, at least a month, right? It's worth paying attention, but this gap has got to close up, right? Go back and look. You see this bottom line, it bounces, and then it starts closing, and then you still have it usually never occurs to be, more than halfway through before it starts to bounce. So when we bounce, we still have several more weeks before we even get even a remote chance of getting a sign. Obviously, here's our capitulation, right? This is the miners giving up, the Bitcoin miners, right? This is, developed for Bitcoin. We want to see a recovery on the weekly chart, and then, it could take weeks after that, right? Our last recovery was kind of a fake out even, so I wouldn't really pay attention to that either. The blue is what we're waiting for, and I would say we're probably a good bit away from that. I would say at the earliest we're probably looking at somewhere in October. It doesn't mean prices can't rise. It doesn't mean Bitcoin can't continue up. Obviously, it has to continue up for this to print blue, because that means miners have recovered and everything's kind of hunky dory again. But worth keeping an eye on, and to mention that we're nowhere close means that, probably still more boring times ahead. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So that's kind of my Bitcoin summary for this Thursday. If you have any questions about what I've done, I'm happy to help. I want to show you one more thing for kind of a bonus, for those of you still around here. Talking about the primary trends and secondary trends on the bigger picture, right? Let's look at the line chart here. So there's, for big market cycles, you really want to see primary trends up, sideways, and then down. And did we get that? Well, yeah. Look at this. This is almost textbook, right? You got your primary trend started here, then another primary trend sideways, basically, right? You go rough double top, right, and rough double bottom, sideways, and then you started your primary downtrend here. And so what do I mean by that is, how do we know this is the primary downtrend? How do you know we're in that now? Well, we failed to continue this primary trend to the upside when this right here, when we printed this and we started going down before making a higher high. That confirms this downtrend has now started, and we're probably going a lot lower. So hindsight's always easy to see these trends when you're in the moment, right? The day to day, the hour to hour, the minute to minute, even the week to week, right? It's difficult to see, and that's why trading is difficult to do. But looking back, this is a perfect, uptrend, sideways trend, downtrend. And that's a part of the cycles. So we will do this whole thing over again whenever that happens. So in order for us to switch cycles, this is the monthly chart, by the way. So this is a very big step out, and these are Bollinger Bands. They get wacky if you're on log scale, but you want to see this on log scale versus linear scale. It gets even nuttier. So back to my point. To identify when we are going to start this session again, we have to put in higher lows first, and then come the higher highs, because in order to take this out, right, we got some work to do. So we want to start forming a structure of higher highs and higher lows, even on the smallest scale for the monthly. So we have at least a temporary bottom now, right? We're forming this. So if we come down, we want to maintain a higher low than we did right here. So something like that, right, would be great. So say September, we come down, back down again, and this low close right there. That's what we want to be paying attention to, and we want to continue this formation, and that's how we will at least have an idea that potentially we could get this thing moving again. So that's what we'd want to look for to start the new trend, is on the monthly chart, zooming way out. Right here's 2023, so keep this in mind. We're not looking at the second to second here. We need to form this and start to reverse this trend, right? So look, just like we did back here, we came down, we're making lower low, lower low, lower high, right? And then we start to come up, and then we kind of topped out double. But when we came back down, there's our first warning sign that the primary downtrend, or this part right here, was over and ending, and we were potentially getting ready to nuke down up, and which we did, right? Because we made a higher low than we did here on the monthly scale. So that's what we want to be looking for on the bigger picture. Primary trends need to get reversed first. Those are the most important. Secondary trends are this part, right? So a secondary trend is intermediate of the primary trend. Here's the primary trend up, secondary trend down, secondary trend up, and this starts to give a warning sign when we really, technically, we were still in the primary trend on this one, because this is continuing it. We made a higher high. We were still all good here. The warning was not here, because guess what? We still made a higher high here, a higher low. And then this was the flash here, right? So, March, the month of March closed. That was it, right? Looking at that, right? Because we pivoted from there, we failed to make it, and then we started coming down again. And then April closed here. Good night, right? So that was 35K. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. Hopefully, this helps you. More learning stuff like this moving forward. And yeah, that's all that. Tomorrow, big important day. Why? For those of you in the U.S. and those of you who are invested in anything, the first Friday of the month every month, the foreign exchange markets are can wildly swing, which can also affect other markets. You have the non-farm employment change. When I traded forex markets, this is the day you look forward to. The first Friday of every month. If these numbers come out and they're drastically different than the forecast, right? There's the forecast. Here's last month, right? So this is the number of new jobs added, right? You got your employment rate for the U.S. dollar coming out. This is all at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So don't be surprised if you see some volatility. This is why, right? If these come out and this is 250K and this is 3.6 as expected, probably not gonna happen much. If this comes out and it's 0 or 500K or something crazy different, right? If the employment rate's at 5% and they expected 3.6, right? There's going to be some crazy volatility going in all markets, the stock market, crypto, forex markets, right? Everything gets affected by this because it used the U.S. dollar, right? So big Friday tomorrow, so pay attention to that. If you're still watching, kudos to you. Quote of the day, great quote here. Somebody was once a nobody who wanted to and did. Fantastic. Car of the day, we're flipping luxury. The Bentley GTC. This one's got the top-down convertible. Very nice. Bonus points if you got what these cars are back here. I don't even know. I think they're Lotus Evoras. What do you think? Do you agree? People are like, what the hell's a Lotus Evora? All right, there's the back picture and a little bit better picture. I don't know if I'd drive my Bentley on the beach, but to each his own. All right, that's all she wrote for this one. 57 gold stars if you stayed this long. Hopefully you learned something today that maybe others don't talk about so much. So, maybe we'll focus on that a little bit more teachings and stuff like that. I feel like not many people do that. So, what do you think? More teachings or more entertainment? More southern accents? More rude? You want me to be rude? You want me to cuss at you? Let me drop some F-bombs? Let's hear your ideas. I'll see you on the next one.